Hello everybody, good morning. Welcome back to Safalta channel, Safalta school rather. My name is Nandini and I am going to be taking revision for your English exam. And today we are going to be studying poetry and figure of speech. We are going to see some important questions of poetry and we are going to also study figures of speech. Because I understand figure of speech sometimes becomes very confusing for students. So which is why today I have, I decided that we are going to study figures of speech in detail, as well as look at some important questions from the two poetries that are there in term 2, which is Aunt Jennifer's Tigers and A Thing of Beauty. So yeah, let's begin. One second. Yeah. So before we start, I would request all of you to like, share and subscribe to Safalta's YouTube channel so that whenever we bring a video for you, and we are doing that on an everyday basis these days because all our faculty members, we are bringing in these videos for your revision, for your exam. So as soon as we go live, you will get the notification and you can quickly join these videos, share it with your friends so that they also get benefited. Because these are like, small revision capsules. You have a look at the entire video, you pay attention, you do whatever we are asking you to do, and your revision will be done. So that is why like, share and subscribe the Safalta channel on YouTube, and also press the bell icon so that you get regular notifications. I think that is more important. So subscribe and press the bell icon because both of them are important, right? Okay, so let's begin by a simple discussion. So, okay, now I have one student who has joined me. I think this is Rajveer again. Hi Rajveer, good morning. So, we'll be studying the figures of speech like I said, and let's start with understanding what is figures of speech quickly. So, figures of speech is basically, used to increase the effectiveness of imagination. Now, what do I mean by that? Often when we write answers in science or in SSTs, the answers are to the point. So for example, there are 4 reasons for the downfall of the Mughal dynasty. For example, you will just state those 4 lines or whatever, the 4 reasons, and you will get marks, right? But in English, we have to make sure that however we write, our answers, our poetry or whatever, it creates a sort of picture in our minds. Yes. And when it creates a sort of picture in our mind is when it actually, the effectiveness of your words come through. Often you must have observed that when you read a chapter or when you read a book or when when you're listening to some poetry, it creates a picture in your mind. That is called imagination. And the more effective that imagination is, it is considered, the poet or the author is considered better, the more effective your imagination is. So which is why to increase this effectiveness of imagination, we use different words, phrases, which when they come together, so separately the words may mean different, but when they come together they create an effect which is very different from how the words would have been used differently. So which is why these figures of speech are employed. Okay, and there are many types of figure of speech, but we are going to take up a few of them today that are generally generally asked in your exam. Not genuinely, generally asked in your exam. Okay, let's go through them. So the first one, of course, and the easiest is simile. So what is simile? Simile is basically when we are comparing two things, right? When we are doing a comparison of two things and we are using the words like and as. So when we are using the words like and as is when we call it simile. Just one second. Yes. When we are comparing two things, we use the words like and as, if we are using the words like and as, and that's when. Okay, so this person says, no ma'am, you're not Rajvi. Then who are you, bache? Patel Gaming. Can you tell me your name so that I know who you are? Okay, so I hope my phone doesn't fall down today. Yeah, So let's take this for example. My throat is as dry as the desert. Yeah, so what did I say? I wanted to say that I'm feeling very thirsty, but instead of just writing that I am thirsty, one second. Yeah, so instead of saying that I'm feeling thirsty, I am writing my throat is as dry as the desert. So you see, it changes the kind of image that you have in your head. Why? Because deserts are usually very dry. So all you want to say here, the simple way of saying this is I am, let me just write it here. The simplest way of, oh, okay, hi Nomit. The simplest way of writing this is I am very thirsty. Yeah, or you can say I feel parched. Parched is another word for thirsty or dry. Okay, so but here instead of using these two sentences, what we are saying is my throat is as dry as the desert. Desert is very dry. So we are just trying to say that our throat is dry and we are thirsty and we need some water. Okay, now then the next, let's look at the next sentence, the next simile. It says, my love for you is as deep as the ocean. My love for you is as deep as the ocean. Now we know that oceans are very deep, right? And we just want to say that what I feel for you is as deep as the ocean. So my feelings for you are very strong. My love for you is very strong. Because anything that is deep is also strong. That is what we are trying to write over here. So instead of saying I love you a lot, or these days, the so-called Gen Z, they write I love you to the moon and back. But this is the colloquial way, the older way of writing it. If you're writing, if some of you like to write poetry, then of course you can write my love for you is as deep as the ocean. The next one, let's take the example of they fought like cats and dogs. Now cats and dogs, we all know, don't get along with each other, right? They don't get along with each other. They keep fighting with each other. So we can say that there were two people who were fighting a lot. Here we actually want to say that these two people were fighting a lot. So instead of writing that, we just wrote they fought like cats and dogs. I can also write here two people are fighting. Very simple way of writing. Yeah, I can also write two people fought fiercely. Of course, the tenses are different here. We are not going into that much detail. I'm just trying to tell you the sense of the sentence here is that two people are having a big fight, and to say that more effectively, I write they fought like cats and dogs. So when we compare two things and we are using the word is and as, then that is called as a simile. Okay, now the next comparison tool is called as a metaphor. The next comparison tool is called as a metaphor, and yeah, it's called as a metaphor, but here no specific words are used. Keep that in mind. No specific words are used. So you don't use the word like and as. Now if I say the camel is the ship of the desert, the camel is the ship of the desert. So what are we doing? We are comparing an animal, that is camel, to the ship. What does the ship do? It helps you to go from one point of the ocean to another point of the ocean, right? From one beach of the ocean to the other side of the ocean. So that is what camels also do, because no cars etc. are very effective in deserts. So because there is a lot of sand, so only camels can take you from one part of the desert to the other, and that is why I am saying the camel is the ship of the desert. He or she is the star of the family. Again, no, see. So again, we are not using the words is and as. And what is the comparison? The comparison is between one person who belongs to a particular family to the star, per se. Now, why are we comparing to the star? Because when you look up in the sky, the stars are usually bright and they're twinkling, right? So this person is the star of the family, meaning that this person, has had some achievement because of which, it is a talk of the town, or it's their careers prospects. So if somebody has, let's say, topped their class 12th exams, and they have also cleared the NEET exam or the NDA exam, or let's say IIT JEE exams, and that person becomes the star of the family, because now their future is all bright like a star. Okay, so that's how the comparison of that one person in the family with the star is done, so that you understand. Yes, so that you understand that this person's future, or whatever this person has done till now, is very bright. Bright not in terms of colors, but in terms of future prospects, but not in terms of colors. So somebody is wearing a yellow lehenga does not make them the star of the family. Okay, remember that. All right, now let's see the third one, which is called as a hyperbole. Hyperbole is, I'll give you an example. So for example, you live, let's say I live in Noida. I do live in Noida, and I go and I go to Kanpur. I have a very good friend who stays there. This is a true story, right? This is actually something that I'm sharing out of my own life. So I have a friend, very good friend. She lives in Kanpur because there's work from home. So she's working from Kanpur these days. Now, if I happen to, go from Noida to Kanpur to meet her, I'll be, making a big, huge journey, a long journey to go and meet her. Now, instead of saying that, oh, I'm going to be taking a long journey to meet you, I say, I've covered 1,000,000 miles to meet you. 1 second. Let me write this for you here. I have covered, or I have traveled 1,000,000 miles to meet you. Okay. So now, of course, I have not traveled 1,000,000 miles to meet her, but I'm exaggerating. So what is exaggeration? Exaggeration, if I tell you in Hindi, exaggeration simply means bada chada ke bolna. But here exaggeration means that I'm trying to create a sort of effect where the person understands that I've made a lot of effort to come and meet you. I've, walked that much, or I've traveled that much to come and meet you, right? So please understand this. This is extremely important. So here the person has not actually traveled 1,000,000 miles or walked 1,000,000 miles, but this effect, this hyperbole is used so that the person who's listening to this or reading this understands that a lot of effort was made to, meet this person. And that effort, to talk about that effort more effectively, I have used exaggeration. I have used hyperbole as means to create that effect. Hyperbole is the name of the figure of speech, right? All right. Now then the next one is, he's as skinny as a toothpick. So I want to just say that this person is very thin. He is extremely thin. Yeah, this is what I want to say. This person is extremely thin. Now, instead of just writing he is extremely thin, 1 second, I'll put my laptop on charging. 1 second, students. Just 1 second. Yeah. So I want to say that he's as skinny as a toothpick. Basically what I mean to say is he's extremely thin. Now, instead of just saying he's extremely thin, what have I written? That he's as skinny as a toothpick. Now, you all know what is a toothpick. Toothpick is that little thin stick with which we, after we have had our food, we dig our teeth with it so that we can take out the remainder of the food from it, right? So instead of just saying he's extremely thin, I have written he's as skinny as a toothpick. So as thin as a toothpick. I sound like a horse. Now this one is interesting. This happens with me actually when I have a very bad cold. This happens with me that I sound like a horse. Yeah, so what I mean to say is that I have a very bad throat, or I'm not feeling well. Usually, or I have a very bad cough because of which my voice is gone. So instead of writing, I have a very bad throat, or instead of writing I have a bad cough, which is why I have a terrible throat, I can't speak much, I write I sound like a horse. Okay. Then there is this one interesting example here that I've written. The first one, this one, he or she is as old as the hills. Now we all know that the hills are, really, the hills are very old, as in they were formed some thousands and millions of years ago, right? So he or she is as old as the hills means that this person is very old. So we are not trying to say that there is somebody who's lived 1,000 years. We are not trying to say here that somebody has tried to live for 1,000,000 years. All we are trying to say is that the person is extremely old, right? Now, instead of just saying that the person is extremely old, I am writing here he or she is extremely old. I have written he or she is as old as the hills. So it creates a kind of effect in your head where you know that even if the person is, the person may be above 90, the person may be above 80, but what we are trying to write here, what we are trying to say here is that the person is extremely old. But it creates a kind of imagination in your head, right? And that is what English poetry is all about. English poetry, see, that is why languages in general are different from your subjects. So when we say that we study English, Hindi, social studies, maths and science in school, you are actually studying two subjects and you're actually studying two languages and three subjects, right? Why are they called subjects and why are these called languages? They are called subjects because, like I said in the beginning of the video, that if I say, if I want to write 4 reasons for the downfall of Mughal dynasty, I can just state the 4 reasons and I'll be done. But in English and Hindi, we develop this capability to write in a manner that it helps to create an image in our minds. And that is what language helps with, right? So, yes, and figure of speech is actually used for that only. Then, let's look at the next one, which is called personification. Now, personification is a tool which is used for comparison. So we did simile and metaphor as tools for comparison. Then we did hyperbole, which was a tool which was meant for exaggeration. Personification is again a tool that is used for comparison. But now how here the comparison is made between living things and non-living things. This can be a little confusing because a lot of times students confuse this with hyperbole. Hyperbole, there is no comparison in hyperbole. So when I say he or she is as old as the hills, I can't say that, it's a comparison. I'm not comparing somebody's age to the age of hills because the hills are maybe 1,000,000 years old. I'm not doing that. I am just exaggerating things when I speak like that. But personification, simile and metaphor are meant for comparisons. Blatant comparison. Comparison which is, you understand when you read the sentence that it is a comparison. Now, how is it done? Now, how is personification different from simile and metaphor? In simile, we compared by using the word is, by using the words like and as. In metaphor, we compared using, we compared two things but without using any words, any specific words. What do we do in personification? We compare one living thing to a non-living thing. Now, how do we do it? For example, young trees sprinted. Now, what are sprints, you may ask me? Sprints are those short runs. The 100, 200 meter race is called as a sprint. Okay. So, a lot of us who play sports like basketball or cricket, your coaches will tell you to first jog and then as a part of your training, you also do sprints. So, young trees sprinted. So, who sprints? Only humans sprint, right? Young trees, don't get into the scientific thing here that, ma'am, young trees are living things and sprints are done by humans, then how is it a comparison? Don't take it over there. What we are trying to say is that sprinting is a very human trait. And when, when we say young trees sprinted, so you must have often noticed that when you sit in cars or you're in a train and you look outside the window, you feel that the trees are actually walking with you. And if you are at a higher speed, you will see that you will feel as if the trees are running with you. So to talk about it, instead of saying that it feels as if the trees are, running with me or walking with me, I've written young trees sprinted. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. Let's see some more examples. I'm sure it will become absolutely clear. Let's pick up this one first. Yes, I think this one is an easy one. Let's pick up this one. The car screamed when it rammed in the truck. The car screamed when it rammed in the truck. Now, car will not scream, right? Screaming is a very human trait. Of course, there are animals also which scream, but screaming is a very human trait. So, but what am I trying to say? That the car rammed means, there was a collision between the car and the truck. And car is much smaller than the truck, right? So, when the car, it rams with the truck, it collides with the truck, there is a huge, there'll be a lot of sound that will come. What have we done? Instead of saying that there was a loud noise, we just said that the car screamed. Now this car screamed becomes a personification. And how does it become a personification? Because we compared the noise, the loud noise that is produced when a car collides with the truck, we compared that with a human screaming. So instead of writing that the car made a loud noise when it rammed in the truck, we said that the car screamed. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you with this example. So again, it says here, the angry clouds marched in the sky. See, it says here, the angry clouds marched in the sky. What is the meaning of angry clouds marched in the sky? So you must have seen that, when it is about to rain, you can see, not about to rain, just before it rains and the sky becomes dark because the clouds are grey and black in color. You see that the clouds are moving, right? And there's a lot of lightning, there's a lot of noise. There is also thunder and lightning sometimes. So this thunder, the clouds that move, when there is thunder, the clouds move, and before it rains also you can see that the clouds are moving, right? And these clouds are, then we can say that instead of saying that there is movement in the sky and the clouds are moving, we just say the angry clouds marched in the sky. Now there are two things here to be noted. First, angry clouds, and then marched. So there are two things that we have compared the clouds with. So before it rains, sometimes there's thunder and lightning. That thunder and lightning we have compared to it by calling angry clouds, by writing angry clouds here. And these clouds are also not still, they are moving. So instead of writing that the clouds were moving, we wrote that angry clouds marched in the sky. We've written angry clouds marched in the sky. Yeah. So I hope personification, now it's very clear. It is the comparison between two things, but usually we compare some human thing with a non-living trait or vice versa. Somebody yesterday was asking me what is the meaning of vice versa. Vice versa means opposite of it is also true. So we could compare a living thing, a living being with some non-living trait, or vice versa, a non-living thing with a living trait. So that is called as vice versa. Yeah. All right. Now let's go ahead and do the next one, which is called as an oxymoron, and this is my favorite one. What is oxymoron? Oxymoron is when we use two words together that are completely opposite to each other. So let's say, when you watch have you all seen cartoons? In cartoons, they try to use a lot of oxymorons, but the only difference is that you will see it, you will see it happening. You will not write it, but you will see it happening. Like if you've seen Spider-Man, spiders are usually very small. Sometimes you will miss them also, they are so small. But in the movie, the spider is shown to be extremely big, right? Of course, in some scenes, not in all of the scenes, but in some scenes, it's shown to be extremely big. Now, that is called as an oxymoron. Why? Because spiders are usually very small, but when they show it like that on screen, it's called as an oxymoron, right? So, two words are used together, but they are in complete opposite to each other. They depict contrasting ideas, opposite ideas, but they are still used with each other to generate that kind of an effect in the mind of the reader, that kind of image in the mind of the reader. Okay. So, for example, I was to say a jumbo ant. For example, if I was supposed to say a jumbo ant. Now, ants, we all know, are teeny meeny creatures, like really, really small. Jumbo is another word for big, huge. When we use it together, it is an oxymoron, because ants usually ants are very small, and the word jumbo means very big. So when we use it together, we are trying to what is the image that we are trying to show, or we are trying to create in the mind, is that probably there was an ant which was, maybe in the draconian times or in the dinosaur times, there used to be ants that were really big. So to imagine an ant which was so huge, we use the word jumbo ant. Otherwise, the ants that we see are very small. For example, let's say this is a very kiddish example, but let's say okay, just to explain, have you all eaten kala khatta? This is the season of kala khatta, right, where we eat that chuski. So it is sour as well as sweet at the same time. That's an oxymoron. In fact, there are many dishes in India which are an oxymoron, because they are sweet and sour at the same time, right? Okay. Anyway, this is you can't use the example of kala khatta in your exams, obviously. Let's take the example that I have written over here. For example, let's say this one, a peaceful war. Can a war ever be peaceful? No. Even if there is a side, even when one side wins, they would have still lost soldiers, and when the soldier loses his life, so does his family, because somebody is losing a father, somebody is losing a husband, somebody is losing their son, somebody is losing a friend. So in any case, when a war is there may be sides, the war may end mutually, that the two sides decide to not now further fight, and they may end peace in mutually, but still lives have been lost, right? Look at Ukraine and Russia. Whichever side wins, whichever side may have won, or whichever side wins, there are people who have already lost their lives. Even the side who wins actually has lost a lot of soldiers. Like I said, when there is a soldier who has died, his family also dies with him, because they have lost a very important member of their family. So a war can never be peaceful, but sometimes we use the word a peaceful war, especially there are some big countries which say that they have been I won't not name the country, because this is not an SST lesson, or it's not a international politics lesson, but there is a country that always says that it promotes the idea of peaceful war, which is all useless. Okay. Then let's say there is another example that I have written here. It's called free market. Another example that I have written here is called as free market. Now, what is free market? Markets, we know that when we go to a market, we go there, we give something, we give some money to the people, and then we buy something. It's always give and take. So how can it be free? Have you ever gone to a market and you have said that I went there and I got it for free? Even if you got it for free, you must have paid some. Even if you got something free with some other thing, like a lot of times big bazaars and all these places have these discounts running, and or you have these free coupons running, but you have paid something for it, right? So market can never be free, but free market is used in a lot in economics. Of course, it's an oxymoron, but it's used a lot in economics for various reasons. Okay? Alright. So, I hope you all have understood what is oxymoron. It is when two words are brought together, which are, which depict contrasting ideas, which denote contrasting ideas, but they also create a very distinct image in the reader's mind, and that is when it is called as an oxymoron. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. So yeah, the next one is the last one, which is called as alliteration. Now what is alliteration? Alliteration is basically, when we use a series of words, this is I think the simplest. When we use a series of words which commence with the same sound. Commence means starts, which start with the same sound. Okay, which start with the same sound or with the same letter. Again, it's a type of repetition which produces, this sounds produce a kind of effect when you read the poetry loudly. When you read the poem loudly, it creates a certain sort of effect. So for example, dirty dolphins dove across the ocean. DDD. Purple pandas painted portraits. per. Now, of course, when you read it, you will not find any difference. But when you read it out aloud, when you read it silently, there won't be any effect. But when you read it out aloud in the series of that poem, that's when it will create the required effect. So, purple pandas painted portraits. She sells seashells on the seashore. So, it creates that kind of effect when you read it out aloud. Okay. So, with this we come to the end of figure of speech. We'll quickly do a revision of what we've done till now. We have done 3 figures of speech that are used for bringing out a comparison. So, which is simile. Then there is metaphor. Simile is when comparison is used by using the word as and like, and metaphor is when comparison is done without using any of these specific words. Then there is personification, which was comparison between the living being and the non-living trait, or the living trait with the non-living thing. So that is personification. Then we did hyperbole, which is means of exaggeration, like when I said I have walked 1,000,000 miles to meet you, that is hyperbole. Then we did oxymoron, which was 2 words being used together to create a contrasting effect in your mind. That is oxymoron. So for example, a peaceful war. And after that we did alliteration, which is basically using of repetitive sounds. Yeah, when a series of words starts with the same letter or it starts with the same sound, it's called alliteration. All right. So with this we have completed figure of speech. Now let's start our revision for the poetry. For poetry, you have 2 poetries that are there in term 2 for CBSE. That is A Thing of Beauty, and we have Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. Both of them are beautiful poems. And Thing of Beauty is written by John Keats, I think. Yes, it's written by John Keats. One second. Yes, it's written by... Okay. Now we will look at important short questions as well as long questions for both these poetries. So let's start with The Thing of Beauty. A Thing of Beauty, I have listed the important short questions here, which does not mean that if these are important and I have done it, then that does not mean that you cannot be asked any other question. Yes, you can obviously be asked other questions as well. But these are the important ones that I have gone through various books and websites and then understood that yes, these are the important ones, but you can be asked anything else also. Now, most of these questions, they rely on a simple theme, simple theme of Thing of Beauty, or you can even call it the central theme of the Thing of Beauty. What is the central theme? The central theme is that yes, central theme of this poem is that yes, we are surrounded by a lot of, we are surrounded by a lot of stress these days. And we are surrounded by wars, we are surrounded by pandemics. There are so many things that can make us tense, that can make us stress these days. But what A Thing of Beauty does is that it helps us to come out of that zone where we are feeling stressed and negative, and it helps us to feel happier and more positive in our lives, right? So how is a thing of beauty, a beauty of joy, a thing of beauty, a joy forever? That's your first question. And this question is asked in many ways in your on the various websites and books that I referred to. This question was asked in various ways. So how is a thing of beauty a joy forever? How is it? Because whatever things of beauty we have around us, so whether it is nature with all its glory, the trees, the forest, the waterfall, the flowers, all of it provides us with beauty. We must have the eyes for it, we must have a vision for it, and we'll be able to see beauty in it. Now why is this a thing? So you can say that, oh, when you look at nature, it makes you feel very nice. But what if we are living in a building and all we see, we live in a society and we see buildings everywhere. So you must understand that what this poet is trying to tell us is that all those things of beauty, which is nature and etc., etc., they are everlasting, they are permanent, and they also keep increasing with time, which is why all those things of beauty are a joy forever, which means that it is timeless, it's eternal. These are the words that you can use in this poem: eternal, timeless, everlasting. These are some words, important words that you can use in your answers. Eternal, timeless, everlasting. The other words that you can use are that it keeps increasing, the beauty keeps increasing. Yeah, sorry, I'll just change the spelling. Yeah, the beauty keeps increasing, and that is why these things are a joy forever. Now, how would a man suffer in the absence of beauty? So obviously, if there's no beauty, what was the central theme of this poem? The central theme was that these things of beauty, they give you this sort of happiness that helps you feel more positive. It helps you be more optimistic, hopeful about your life, right? And hope is the most important thing in life, and if you don't have hope, then obviously you are going to suffer. So how would a man suffer in the absence of beauty? Man suffers in the absence of beauty because when there is no hope, obviously you're suffering. The other thing is, like I said, we are living in times of great distress. We ourselves saw how a 2-year pandemic was followed by a war, and that leads to a lot of problems, which is why man is suffering. Now, this is something that is happening around us. Within us, there is a lot of jealousy. There is a lot of malice. Malice means wrong intention for people. Then there is a lot of there is lack of good qualities in human beings in general. So if there is absence of beauty, anyway man is bound to suffer, right? So I hope this answer is clear to all of you. Then it says, what makes human beings love life in spite of troubles and sufferings? Again, the first answer: in spite of troubles and sufferings, because we have these things of beauty around us, we are able to create that happiness for us. We are able to be more hopeful. We are able to stay positive and optimistic every day. So despite our troubles and sufferings, we will remain optimistic about life. We will remain hopeful about our life. So the first and the third answer are pretty much the same, only the wordings will be a little different. Okay. Now the next one is a very simple question. List the things that cause sufferings and pain or beauty. So you can be asked either, right? If you go through the poem again, you will understand. So again, cause of sufferings and pain is aging parents, sickness, it could be wars, it could be a disease. So all that, and then of course there is jealousy, malice. All of that is the cause of suffering and pain. And what are the things that are things of beauty? Like I told you, nature with all its glory, the trees, the flowers, forests, the waterfalls, the sky, of course. Then of course our ancestors also are a thing of beauty, which we are going to discuss in the next question. Okay. Then it says, how can the mighty dead be a thing of beauty? Because we might feel that, oh, when I lost my grandfather or grandmother, I was filled with sorrow. So how is that a thing of beauty? Because it is a thing of beauty because when we remember them now, and when we have beautiful memories with these people, when we remember the good times that we have spent with these people, it obviously is a thing of beauty. Otherwise also we have much to enjoy. Why? Because not enjoy. Why? It gives us a lot of joy, not enjoy. The joy is because there are a lot of heroic stories of bravery and courage that is attached to these to our forefathers and our ancestors. So which is why the mighty dead are also a thing of beauty. So I hope that answer is clear to all of you. What is the endless source of an immortal drink? Okay, let's break down this question first. The first one, it says, is what is the first tricky word here is endless source. What is an endless source? Endless is something that will never end, right? It will be timeless, it will never end, and you can obviously keep going back to it. So if I know that there is an endless source of water, I know I am assured and I am reassured that if I need water, I can always go back to this source. So it is endless, it never ends. An immortal drink is something that obviously we drink. Immortal is something that does not die. You know, it does not have a distinct life period, that okay, after this life period this drink will expire. There's no expiry date. That's what immortal is. So so now the question is, what is the endless source of an immortal drink? The immortal drink is the thing of beauty, right? And what does it give you? What is it a source of? It is, let me write this down. I think it will be a little difficult. Let me write this down. So, one second, I'll write it here. So, immortal drink. Oops, what just happened? Immortal drink is, what was I saying? Yes, things of beauty. Okay. And what is it an endless source of? Which are an endless source of hope, optimism, and courage, right? So the things of beauty which we discussed in this poem are actually the endless source of hope, optimism, and courage. So obviously you will just not write this one line and come back. You're going to explain what are the things of beauty, and then you're going to explain that these become a source of hope, optimism. You can even explain endless source. Endless source is, again, like I said, it is an eternal source. It's an everlasting source. It does not have a specific time period. So it, you know, it is a source that's never going to end. And if we have a never ending source of hope and optimism means positivity. If we have an endless source, we have an everlasting source of hope, optimism, and courage, then of course it, you know, our life is very fruitful. It is, we are able to work better. We are able to live our lives in a much better way. So that is what the immortal drink is all about. Yeah. So I hope the short questions of things of beauty are clear. We'll quickly go through the long answer questions. The long answer questions are a version of the short questions itself. Only thing is that you'll have to write more, but we'll go through them obviously. The only difference between the short questions and the long questions is that they are somewhat similar, but the number of words will be different. Alright, let's have a look at them. A thing of beauty is joy forever. Explain this line with reference to the acute times of stress we live in. Now it's very simple. I've already told you the answer when we were discussing short questions, right? Now how do we go about this, writing this long answer? First we explain the acute times of stress, right? It's going to be like a 70-word answer. If you get a 70-word answer from poems. Yeah. So you are going to explain what are the acute times of stress. Now acute times of stress could be unemployment, issues because of unemployment. There's a lot of corruption. There was pandemic. There are wars. People are dying because they do not get healthcare services. You know, especially if you must have read in during the pandemic, it was not in the metropolitan cities that faced a lot of problem. It was more in the, you know, smaller towns of India that faced a problem because they did not have doctors and medicines, and that is why they did not survive. So in the acute, so you can first explain what is acute times of stress and how that acute times of stress lead to yeah, one second, I'll write this down also. Acute times lead to stress. They lead to anger. They lead to, you know, murders, jealousy, rage. Okay, rage is a lot of anger, where you're you're ready to kill somebody. So acute times lead to all these things. Of course, you can discuss you can write what are the acute times that we are talking about. And because of these things of beauty, because they are everlasting, because they are timeless, these things of beauty become a joy forever. Because in these acute times, like I told you in the earlier section when we were discussing short questions, that this thing of beauty is an endless, these things of beauty are an endless source of hope, optimism and courage, which is very important to have at these point of times when everything around us is so grim. Nobody is happy these days. So what is the surest way to becoming happy is when we focus on these things of beauty. Again, this question, explain an endless fountain of immortal drink. I told you as earlier also, this question can come as both a short question as well as a long question. And then the third one is, beauty is best left undefined. Support this answer in line. Support this line with your rationale coupled with the idea given in the poem. Now here you must understand that what they are eventually trying to say here is that beauty is different for other people. There's no one specific definition of beauty. Okay, there are different people have different definitions of beauty, and however, whatever your definition of these things of beauty may be, they constantly give that hope, courage and optimism to everybody. So you have to discuss this. Beauty is best left undefined. You have to discuss it in line with what you have studied in the poem. Okay, so I hope now this one poem, which is a thing of beauty, is absolutely clear. Let's go to Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. Now in Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, the central theme again of how Aunt Jennifer represented women of those times who were oppressed because of the patriarchal system, because of the whole institution of marriage, and how she created characters through her knitting which were completely opposite to the kind of life she was living. That is the central theme of Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, and that is the theme on which your questions will also be based. So the first question that we are tackling with is, how are Aunt Jennifer's Tigers different from hers? And the second question is also almost the same, that why does she create such characters that are so different? So these are interrelated. Let's speak about the differences first. Aunt Jennifer herself is weak. She's a meek woman. She's bound by her marriage. She's not allowed to express herself in the marriage, and she's just supposed to play the role of a dutiful wife. She's not confident about herself. Whereas the tigers that she has created are fearless. They are brave. They are confident, right? Very different from her personality. Why does she create such characters? Because it is her innermost desire, a strong urge to be able to live that kind of life, to be able to live a brave life, a courageous life, a life where truly she could fulfill her dreams and desires, right? So Aunt Jennifer's personality is very different from the tigers that she has created through her knitting. But why has she done that? She has done that because it is her desire to live that kind of life. Okay. Then what is suggested by the phrase massive weight of uncle's wedding band? So she's wearing a wedding band. Now usually a wedding band is a symbol of love. It is symbol of trust and respect. But this line means that this lady is suppressed in her marriage. Her desires are suppressed, and she is also she's not able to speak out in her marriage, and all she has to do is she has to portray the role of a dutiful wife. That is all she's supposed to do, right? So the marriage had taken away her identity from her. So you can obviously write this also. One second. The marriage had taken away her identity from her. And what was her identity now? That she was supposed to play the role of a dutiful wife. Okay. Now, what are the ordeals that Aunt Jennifer is surrounded by, and why is it significant that the poet uses the word ringed? Very important. So, two parts of the question, that what are the ordeals and why are we using the word ringed? Now, what is a ring? A ring is something that surrounds something, right? So if I'm wearing a ring in my hand, it is surrounding my finger. If we are standing in a boxing ring, there is a ring around it, there is a boundary around it, out of which we cannot go, you know, even when we are fighting with the other person. Now here in Aunt Jennifer's case, her life was her marriage. She did not have a life outside it, which means again you're going to use the words oppression and suppression here. She was a woman who was suppressed in her marriage. Her identity was taken away from her. So that's, anyway, it's a very big ordeal, means a difficult thing, a difficult task. So when your identity will be taken away from you, anyway, it becomes very difficult to live. And she lives in a male dominated society where she's not able to express her desires. She's not able to express how she feels. So that is why, you know, the ordeals, she's surrounded by those ordeals, and we use the word ringed because she's surrounded by them and she cannot come out of them. That is important. She's surrounded by them and she cannot come out of them. Then the last question is, how does Aunt Jennifer express her bitterness and anger against male dominance? Very simple. It is through her art that she does it. And what is the source of this art form? The source of this art form is her knitting. So through these knittings, she creates a world where the characters of that, somebody has joined me. Good afternoon. Hi. So we are doing the revision of figures of speech and poetry here. Okay. All right. So how does she express her bitterness? She expresses her bitterness and anger against male dominance by creating such characters like her tigers through her knitting. And what is the personality of those tigers? Sorry. What is the personality of those tigers? The personality of those tigers is brave. They are courageous. They are confident, right? They are not scared of people. So if you see, I think the third or fourth line of this poem says that, you know, they are sitting on the trees and they are not scared. I mean, I'm explaining this. It is not the same words. That they are sitting on the trees. The tigers are sitting on the trees and they are, you know, beneath that tree. There are people there, and these tigers are not scared of them. So that is how she chooses to express herself against the bitterness and anger against the male dominance. Okay, so I hope this is clear to all of you. So the last three questions, actually all of these questions can also be asked as a long answer question. Okay, because all these questions are important. So of course you can have short answer questions, which is about 20 to 30 words, maximum of 40 words, and 70 word answers for your long writing answers as well. These can be asked. And then the next one is important long questions. Explain the stark difference between the death of Aunt Jennifer and tigers prancing. So if you remember, the first or the second line of this poem said that the tigers were prancing. You know, prancing means walking around. So when you look at what she has created, that final thing that she has created, you know, through knitting, you will feel the tigers are so alive that you will feel that they are walking on that screen. Whereas Aunt Jennifer is dead, right? So though she was not able to live a life that she truly wanted to, though she was not able to come out of that oppression, you know, that the society subjected her to, though she was not able to break free from her marriage, or, you know, she could not even openly resist, you know, the oppression that she faced, but she created tigers that could, the characters that could. So that is the difference. So even though Aunt Jennifer would die and, you know, her life would be over and nobody would probably remember her, but through her art, people will remember her. So that's the difference that she has created. Then it says, analyze the symbols employed in the poem. Now, what are the symbols that are employed in the poem? There are a lot of things. I'm going to write them down here. Of course, the first and foremost is chivalrous tigers, brave tigers, chivalrous tigers, confident tigers. Yeah. So these are symbols that she is using in the poem. Then at some place it is written, yes, yeah, how she's ringed in her circumstances. Then the next one is, one second, how she's ringed in her circumstances. Then of course, massive weight of the wedding band. All right, these are all symbols that have been used. Then there was one more which I'm forgetting. It was something to do with how she used the ivory needles. So that is also a symbol where, you know, it was difficult for her to even move the ivory needles. Then, and of course, how she's comparing. So that is a metaphor where she compares, where she calls the tigers bright denizens. That's a metaphor that she has used. Bright denizens, right? Bright topaz denizens, I think that was the, yes. Okay. So these are the symbols and the figure of speech that are employed in the poem to help create that kind of effect. And then the last question here is, what knitting was to Aunt Jennifer, poetry was for Adrian Rich. Poetry was for Adrian Rich. Do you agree? Comment with reference to the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. Now see, during that time when this poem was written, it was not one story of Aunt Jennifer. Aunt Jennifer practically was the symbol of a huge group of women who were suffering from the same oppression that Aunt Jennifer was suffering from, right? So it was not only Aunt Jennifer, it was a lot of other women who were suffering because of that. And their way of expressing their anger, their way of expressing the kind of life that they wanted to live, their way of, you know, feeling that confidence that you know, they always wanted to, was done through knitting, or it was done through, let's say, embroidery or stitching. So what and of course, who's written this poem? Adrian Rich has written this poem. So what this question wants to say is that there is what knitting, what these art forms were to Aunt Jennifer, poetry, writing poetry was for Adrian Rich, because she was also you know, through these poems she was also trying to express a part of her own life, and maybe a big part of her life. Okay, so I'm sure you will be able to write these questions. Now with that, we come to the end of this video. I have taken you through all the important figure of speech. I have taken you through all the important questions, long and short, of the two poems, that is Aunt Jennifer's Tigers as well as Aunt Jennifer's Tigers as well as A Thing of Beauty. You can obviously message me if you have any problem. You can comment here. I will be happy to help you. Before going, I really you know, request you to like, subscribe and share this video with your other friends, so that they can also be you know, they can also revise during this period, this last minute revision. And subscribe to the Safalta channel, and also press the bell icon so that you can get our daily updates as well. All right, thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow at 11:30. Bye.